am Empress Real 1584, the Good Witch. If this is your first time visiting me, I would like to thank you. While you're here, please like, subscribe, and share this channel. By taking this action, you will be helping the channel to grow. Also, take a moment to read my About page so that you can have some understanding about who I am. I will never copy another person's work, nor will I ever copy another person's title. That is because I am authentically me. This work is a part of my bloodline. I thank you for viewing, and I hope that you will return. Please check out my other videos. All are welcome to share his or her story in the comment section below because your story may be a helpmate to someone else. My channel is a no judgment zone place for healing in some sort of way. If my video does not resonate with you, please do not try to make it fit your circumstances at all. For anyone else and everyone else that the message does make sense to, take from it what will help you on your journey towards your happiness in every area of your life. Once again, I am Empress Real One 584, the Good Witch. This channel is all about healing, so let's begin healing together. I've recently posted a video of a gentleman speaking about our missing and exploited children, young women, young men. And so I ask that you watch that video in my shorts feed and share it on your platform. When it comes to people of color, the news really doesn't report us at all. I would like to spread awareness for you to be able to look at the faces of our missing. And if you see them, if you see something, say something, speak out. It's so important to do so as we go missing every day. Share the video. It's important to do so. Today I'm going to speak about spirits, the pesky kind. I'm going to speak about herbalism. I'm going to speak about dreams so that you can have a better understanding. You know, there are so many cultures in this world, and I am a woman whose family holds the title to many cultures. But I come from a long line of root workers, as many of you do know, especially for the ones who have personal readings with me, right? I am a psychic. I am also a medium. I am a root worker. I am a healer. I am a spiritual teacher. And I'm a love strategic. Let us dive into this. I want to dive into dreaming. But when it comes to dreams, astrology does play a key role when it comes to dream because astrology is the art of studying the position of the planets and the relationships between them, which are calculated for a particular time, day, and place, which many of you are aware of. So the resulting natal chart or horoscope can be set from anything from the birth of a child to the purchase of a car, a house, and much more besides those things. The distribution of the planets around the chart and the way they relate to one another describes the event concerned, including its potentials and pitfalls. So, this interprets a natal chart and it takes someone with skills and experience to direct you towards your path. And many of you may be skilled at doing so on your own. But even simple star astrology can reveal a tremendous amount about a person's character. The only information you need is the person's date of birth, as this will tell you which star they actually belong to. Someone whose birthday falls on, let's just say, as an example, of February the 10th, for instance, was born under the sign of Aquarius. So you can always get a free natal chart. They will give you an example of a free natal chart online. I'm not going to give you any specific websites because I'm not promoting a website. But it's so important for each and every person to understand their natal chart because then you'll have more of a clear understanding of yourself. I often hear in my readings people ask, who am I? What was I supposed to be doing in life? Actually, why am I here in this realm? And those questions can be answered for you with receiving your natal chart. However, the answers always lie within. So, we're going to speak about the sun. Star signs are also known as sun signs because they are the 12 zodiac signs through which the sun moves during its apparent journey around each earth year. Let me just say it like that because I am not an astrologer. The moon and the 8 planets in our solar system also follows this path, which is called the ecliptic. It's kind of like a narrow band in the sky that lies at an angle and just over 23 degrees to the celestial equator. You know, for millennia, astronomers and astrologers had figuratively divided this band into 12 segments of each, like, I believe it's like 30 degrees, so they can track the precise progress of all the heavenly bodies as they move through the sky, if you get what I'm saying. So I am not an astrologer, but I do know astrology. I don't do natal charts at all because I find the work to be tedious. But let me give you a little helping hand. A lot of times, people who pretend to be psychic or people who pretend to be astrologers, you know, they have a little program that they purchase for a few $100s, and then they will pretend to give you a psychic reading by reading your birth chart. So just be aware of that. If someone is asking you for very tedious information about yourself, what time were you born? What city were you born? What state were you born? What's your birthday? What's your last name? I'm just saying. So just be careful with that. You know, the history of astrology, man has been watching the progress of the planets through the sky for many thousands of years and associating the relationship between those planets with the events that take place here on Earth and this realm. So this interest, how can I say, in astrology dates back to long before humans learned to read, write. So it is impossible to be, how can I say, precise about the exact origins of astrology and how they came to be. But many people today in this climate, we are still intrigued by the sun, by the moons, by the stars, because these are things that are associated with the body, the mind, and the soul. And I say these things because we're in changing times at present. We have someone who is playing the authoritator, acting as they are a god or gods, plural, right? With an S, more than one, by trying to block out the sun, which no one holds ownership over the sun because it's here to nourish the planet. Many people count on the sun, the moon, the stars, fire, earth, water, air. We count on these things, right? Because they were here before we were here, right? It's called survival. And we do have someone at present that's trying to block out the sun because some people, right, can't handle the sun. The sun disturbs them. But these are the same people who pretend to be the first. If you were the first, then the sun would not disturb you, it would energize you. But yes, we do have a person for a people that is trying to block out the sun to pollute and destroy our environment. The 12 star signs are divided into four sections, and they are known as elements of triplicities. These are the four elements that have been recognized by the Western world for millennia: fire, earth, air, just as well as water. We all learned this, right, in elementary school. Fire. Let's speak about fire first and foremost, right? The three fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Fire endows them all with enthusiasm, energy, aspiration, just as well as openness, because these signs are open individuals, ready to share their stories, ready to speak about any and everything with you, but it also has a specific impact on each of them: the Aries, the Leo, the Sagittarius. Fire gives Aries its innocence and exuberance, as well as them being very impatient. Leo is endowed with, how do I say, showmanship and the need to express oneself as creatively as possible, making them the center stage. And Sagittarius has directness. Many of them are honest, and they have this optimist outlook when it comes to life. When it comes to earth signs, we call them the Taurus, the Virgo, just as well as the Capricorn. And they are the three signs of earth, and it gives them all a dependable foundation, a solid foundation, and groundedness. Taurus has determination and a dogness. Earth gives Virgo is caution and diligence, and Capricorn is persistence. And they are very realistic when it comes to the way that they think. When it comes to the air that we breathe, our air signs are Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. Those three signs, theirs is the realm of ideas. with the desire to be slightly detached from their surroundings in order to remain objective. They love to be fair. So for Gemini, this leads to a thirst for communication and a need to dwell in their mind. With Geminis, they have a communication which people can interpret them as the world's greatest gossipers because they're nosy, and they dwell in their mind trying to make sense of something but putting their own spin on what makes sense to them. But what makes sense to them may not make sense to another person. And we all have to understand that we are all individuals. So, when it comes to the air, this endows Libra with an ability to connect with others in an intellectual way because Libras are very, how do I say, affluential people. They're smart and they have the ability to connect with people, putting them in one of our greatest positions in life, because they're very intellectual. Aquarius is interested in pure theory. And this is the most emotionally detached of those three signs. Aquarius is emotionally detached. Not unless you are their child, you are their sister, their brother, their aunt, uncle, cousin, whatever the case may be, whoever the case may be. But they are detached in a way because they are who we call the forward thinkers of the zodiac when it comes to water. We have Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, my cousins, right? Because I too am associated with water. I am a water sign. So, with the three of us, we dwell in the world of emotions and sensations. So, this gives Cancer its nurturing ability and the need for emotional security. Scorpios, they have this feeling that goes a little deeper. And many of us may say very deep indeed, and may be hard to fathom who they are and the people around them because they like to get to the core of life. When it comes to Pisces, Pisces gains great empathy and compassion, but can have a weak emotional boundary, not knowing when it's time to let go of a person. Pisces is a little weaker at doing that. And I know a lot of people may say that cancers that they are weak because they are so emotional. One thing about a cancer, they can walk away quickly and pretend to have never known you. They can walk by you 10 years later and still never give you a smile because once you've done cancer wrong, that's the worst thing that you can do. So now that I've gone over the 12 signs of the zodiac, we understand that Aries represents Mars, Taurus represents Venus, Gemini, Mercury, Cancer represents the moon. That's why I speak so highly of the moon. Leo represents the sun, as I am the Cancer with the Leo cusp, and I speak highly of the sun. uh, those two things are a source of energy because to whereas the sun nurtures the earth, the moon does the same things. Things still grow in the dark. My mother would say, whatever is done in the light will come out in the dark, and whatever is done in the dark will come out in the light, vice versa. So, Mercury is represented by Mercury, Libra is represented by Venus, and Scorpio, let me just say this, is represented by Mars and Pluto. So Sagittarius is represented by Jupiter, Capricorn is represented by Saturn, Aquarius is represented by Saturn and Uranus. Pisces is represented by Jupiter just as well as Neptune. So we have three signs that are represented by two planets: Scorpio, Mars, and Pluto; Aquarius, Saturn, just as well as Uranus; Pisces is represented by Jupiter, just as well as Neptune. And to give you a quick summary of what we've discussed, the cardinal signs are Aries, Capricorn, Libra, and Cancer. Fixed signs are Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. And mutable signs are Sagittarius, Virgo, Gemini, and Pisces. I hope I didn't leave anyone else. Fire is Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Earth is Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Air is Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini. And my cousins, water, Cancer, Scorpio, just as well as Pisces. Once again, I encourage each person to always get an example of their natal chart so that you can have an understanding of who you are, why you think the way that you do. And having a natal chart aligns with you, an individual person, no one but you. We are all individuals. None of us are the same. And if someone tries to copy or mimic you, they can never do it as well as the originator. So I want to speak about dreams. Oftentimes, we are contacted through the dream world, whether it be from a crossed over loved one, an ancestor, an archangel, right? Or our deities that we pray to. Some of us are even connected by the living. That's called telepathic dreaming. Someone that is alive, that's thinking about you, trying to communicate with you, and they too will show up in a dream, right? It's not all about the dearly departed. Sometimes, we in human form, physical form, earthly form, we can connect through our dreams to another individual. That's what you call calling in someone that you haven't seen or heard from in a while. You're calling them in telepathically. But let's just speak about dreams because throughout history, many scholars study dreams and they have created classifications, the systems that represent the different types of dreams that they have witnessed. So we oftentimes have reoccurring dreams. Why do we have reoccurring dreams is a great question because, as their name implies, these are ones that feature the same or a very similar situation repeating itself across numerous dreams. So, reoccurring dreams may occur in a concentrated time period, or for some people, these dreams repeat throughout extended periods of their lives, with some finding themselves having dreams similar to the ones that they had when they were a child, or a teenager or a young adult. So reoccurring dreams are pretty common with a majority of adults surveyed. There were so many people that were surveyed and still are today, when you go and have dream studies, sleep analysis, right? To find out what this is, why this keeps happening to you. But reoccurring dreams have negative and sometimes unpleasant tones to them. or themes. For some people, they may be so upsetting that they are experienced as nightmares that periodically or regularly occur. It would seem that a recurring dream may be a clarion call to something toward which, our psyche wants us to pay attention to. So they may reflect something unresolved that calling for healing. Now, there's often times when the spiritual realm may try to communicate with us. Oftentimes, when is a crossed over loved one, a family member, a friend, someone that you may have known but not that well. Because if they cannot communicate with you in the physical, meaning a person that has psychic or gifts of being a mediumship, right? If you can't hear them, feel them, see them, or even taste some of the same things that they may once upon a time have liked, they will try to communicate with you in other ways, such as leaving a coin in a place, a very odd place that you may find it, a feather. Right? You even seeing a rainbow or watching a bird fly by or a butterfly. There's so many things that our spiritual team, someone that we're connected to, will let you know that here I am. I hear you, I see you, I understand, and I am trying to help you as well. We're going to dive into healthy spirits versus spirits that are not healthy and how you can dispel them. Now, let's speak about telepathic dreams, which I have mentioned earlier. This is one of my favorites because many of you who are familiar with me, I told you about a story of how I was able to connect with my son telepathically, but through a dream. So, telepathic dreams are similar to precognitive dreams, right? And that both are considered to be, how can I say, a phenomena, not able to be currently explained by science, which we don't need science to explain anything to a person that's a root worker. See, science wants to be able to explain why this happens. Why does this herb work versus why this medicine doesn't work? And this is who most of us are. No matter what culture, we know what we know. And some things are hidden that are never to be discussed because some spells are shared throughout family, some concoctions, right? Whether it be healing, right? If one of our family members are sick, we use certain things within the family to eliminate any ailment that they're dealing with, right? But science is always trying to make sense of something, but everything is not always meant to be made sense of. And yet they differ from each other. A telepathic dream is one which a person is able to physically transmit information to another person, which then appears in that person's dream. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Sigmund Freud, right? But let me tell you, I am a book freak, right? And I have a sister that is crossed over now, but she was a historian, right? She got a full scholarship and based on history. My mother, an educator as well, a school teacher, right? And I can go down the Mason Dixon line, but my whole family are educators, both my mother's side and my father's side. But getting back to Sigmund Freud, actually, he gave a nod to the idea in his paper dreams, and telepathy, although he supposedly never actually acknowledged the belief in the idea. There are numerous antidotes, right, of clinical accounts of its occurrence. So there's also a famous pilot that was studied that took place, I believe it was around 1971, that we called the Grateful Dead, a concert in Port Chester, New York. Thousands of people attended this particular concert, and they were invited to send thoughts of, how do I say, randomly selected images that were projected on a screen at this concert to a skilled dreamer miles away. So, upon this dreamer awakening, the dreamer reported seeing, images that actually had an impressive correspondence with the art that was mentally projected by the concert goers. So, telepathic dreams were the focus of, they said, 10 years worth of study by esteemed dream researchers. In my culture, we do this in a hidden form of fashion, that when we want to get a message to our loved one that may be, I'm just going to be honest, that may be incarcerated, that may be sick and you can't get to them, if they live in another state and they may not have access to a phone, if someone is in a coma, this is a way that we share information. Even when families were separated once upon a time through slavery, we used telepathic energies. Well, my family did. And so I tested this. One night, I had a bad feeling about one of my sons, and I could not shake it for the life of me. However, that evening, I went to bed. I went to bed, and when I went to bed, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was standing next to my son. He was laying on a bed in a fetal position. And I said to him, "Turn around and look at me." He said, "Mommy, what are you doing here?" I said, "You haven't called home in quite some time. I need you to turn and look at me." He said, "No, I don't want you to see my face like that." And so I immediately woke up. And hours later, right, of that same day, hours later in the morning, a person called me and said, "Hey, your son is injured." And I said, "Are you in contact with my son?" He said, "He can't speak to you, but yes, I am in close proximity to him and he is being treated." um, I said, "Ask him, did he see me?" And the guy came back to the phone, this stranger that I was on the phone with, and he said, "Your son said, yes, he saw you. And you asked him to turn around. You wanted to see his face." And I immediately started crying because I knew that what my grandfather had taught me was real. And that was the first time that I had tried to use that in quite some time. As a child, when my family members knew that I was a psychic, that I was a medium, I had to always be around other psychics within my family spectrum and mediums for them to help me to develop my skills, to teach me about the living meaning our herbs, to nurture, to heal, to help when it comes to our family or anybody. Because in our family, being a root worker means that you're taking on the oath to want to heal. whether it be mentally, spiritually, or emotionally. You want to heal. There are some people who do root work and they do it from a different position. But in my family, we had to make a choice, and it's called free will. Free will, you can A, go to the right, or B, go to the left. You can choose whatever side that you want to work on. But in my family, all of us have chosen to work the root as far as being natural healers, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, just as well as spiritually. A lot of times when you listen to Tarot, or you decide to go out and have tarot card reading, right, by some type of an advisor, when you go to tarot, what do? They shuffle cards. Some of them will ask you to touch them so that your energy can tell the story of what's going to come out in the cards. Others will just look at you to feel your energy, and others that are truly gifted, they can do it over a telephone without asking you any questions at all. I always say a true worker never has to ask anything. They should be able to tell you why you're calling and what's needed. However, recently I did a live, and it was a young lady on the live, and she stated that she was waiting for a particular gentleman to come back into her life. I never believe in waiting for anyone. However, when it comes to telepathic, whether it be in the dream state or in your awakened state, you can connect to a person telepathically by thoughts, because thoughts do become things. Even before you go to bed, whatever that last thought that was on your mind, your body will take it into the core of you, into your soul. And if it's something that you desire, or if it's something that you have desired to be removed, it can happen telepathically. You are sending your body a message to say, do this for me, and then your soul will produce it for you. True story. So everything is about the body. Many of my Bible thumpers in the Bible, they tell you that the God that you serve, to the Bible thumpers, that for he that is in you is also in the world. In my culture, spirituality, us being free, knowing the connections that I gave you to the elements of the fire, the water, the earth, the sun, and so on. We connect through our soul. Everything has to always be done with the sole purpose. And when something is done with the sole purpose of being good, and you believing that you can have whatever it is, you're doing that, and you're sending your mind, your body, your spirit all the tools that is needed for the development of what you want, that will resonate right in front of your face in your experience. So when we speak about, you know, telepathy, we can all do it. We have to just tap into who we are. So when it comes to precognitive dreams, this is the type of dream in which you envision an event that has yet to occur, but which eventually does in the future, right? It focuses upon a happening that you had no other way of knowing about except through your own oneness, your own unique vision. Some people consider themselves to be able to foretell the future from their dreams, while others may not consider their dream to be precognitive until after an event. They will tell you, hey, I did dream about that. I wish I would have said something. But when that dream manifests, then they are even surprised or excited. So, precognitive dreams may be more of a commonplace than many would believe. You understand what I'm saying? So, understand the different states of dream because I often have people asking me about dreams. I am not a dream interpreter. I know some things that I was taught throughout my history with the root workers of my family, but the way we interpret things may not be the way that it needs to be interpreted for you. So, for us, sometimes depending on the dream, if we dream about a male, it's actually not the male that you're dreaming about, is vice versa. It's the female, but that female is more so standing in her strength. And if you are dreaming about a female, it may not be about that female, it may be vice versa, a male that's standing in his feminine energy. So, depending on what the dream is, in my family, we interpret those dreams in different ways. So, let's speak about nightmares because I know we have all had them. And nightmares are bad dreams, plain and simple, those in which we find ourselves feeling threatened or deeply upset. They may provoke anxiety and fear, and those dreams are so powerful that they hold on to our emotions as we wake up from that silence, that sleep state. And so given that we are often roused while right in the midst of one of our nightmares, it's no wonder that we may remember them and that they may stay with us throughout the day, for some of us weeks or even months. Some nightmares have you shaken up. So nightmares generally occur in the early morning hours when we're spending more time in that REM sleep, that REM sleep, and I'll speak about the REM sleep in a moment, but nightmares are most common in preschoolers, with children finding that they experience them less frequently as they enter their preteen years. And then teenage girls reported, because I was watching something on YouTube, and I saw that a lot of teenage girls had reported having them more frequently than boys that were about the same age. But in children, those figures that pose a threat usually appear as monsters, ghouls, animals, while in adults, they often take the form of other people. And many of you may understand hags because in my family, hags are something that are evil. And especially when a person is coming into their psychic gifts, or if they're coming into their knowing of being able to connect with the other realms of speaking with spirit, then you have hags that are come in and they will, science explains it as sleep paralysis, but that's not what it is. These are witches. These are these goblins. These are these ghouls that I just mentioned, but they will choke you to whereas you may wake up feeling out of breath, like, oh my goodness, or you may wake up in a sweat, or you may feel like, oh my goodness, I couldn't move. Your eyes could be actually open, waking up from this sleep nightmare, but then you can't move. So in my culture, we call those hags that attack because hags do not want to see you to elevate. So, let's just remove ourselves from that conversation. However, as upsetting as a nightmare may be to many of us, right? Especially the ones that cannot shake off the nightmares, that stay with you throughout the day, a week, or even months. Sometimes people hold on to these nightmares for years. Let me tell you, they hold on to them for years. But, it's completely normal. Even with the hags, it's completely normal with just about everyone having a nightmare. It's normal. It's normal because when a person is new in developing and having an understanding of their spiritual gifts, they may not know about the energies of the hag, so it will be frightening. However, even when I was young, I never even liked to speak about hags at all. In my adult life, I don't like speaking about them, but I got this new sense of freedom that I'm like, come and get me. You get what I'm saying? Come and get me. Because sometimes we have to test our strengths, right? We have to test our strengths because that's exactly what the hags are doing. And that's what nightmares are. They test your strength. And if you can make it through, because let me tell you, some people don't wake up from nightmares. And some people don't wake up from those hags attacking you. So let's speak about night terrors because nightmares and night terrors are totally different. Night terrors, they're also known as sleep tremors, and they are something that many small children experience. They do. You may hear them whining in their sleep or jumping out of their bed, running to your bed. But in late adolescence, most who have had them, they do outgrow them. That said, some adults who experience a traumatic event, they may have PTSD, inform nightmares, and those nightmares may turn into night terrors. So while the name may have you think that they are a type of nightmare, they actually are quite different. They occur in stages. Deep sleep, usually during the first, third, to half of the night. So this is in contrast to nightmares which occur during REM sleep. And I told you I'm going to get back to REM sleep for you. But these happen closer to early mornings because REM is actually when you are waking up, and REM is just about as you're drifting off when you're still a little bit in your conscious mind, but night terrors are sometimes accompanied by sleepwalking, right? So often you have to, with children, make sure that all your doors and windows are locked when you have sleepwalkers. Adult sleepwalking also are dangerous things. Children end up in your bed at night, not even remembering how they got there, or they end up on a couch, not knowing how they got there, or on the floor. But night terrors are sometimes accompanied once again by sleepwalking, and it's very dangerous. So, no one really understands how that occurs. But in my family, when it comes to our spirituality, you know how they say the blind leaving the blind when you are hanging with a friend that's just as ignorant as you are. And then the elders may say it's the blind leading the blind, right? That those two fools are going to end up in trouble. But sometimes it's the spirit that's walking your spirit. And sometimes those spirits aren't pleasant. So let me just tell you that. So it can be a very upsetting experience, especially when it's a child having a night terror, because you're like, what can I do? Because as parents, we all want to comfort our children, but it's like, what can I do? to stop my child from having these night terrors. And in my family, we lay down a little salt. We lay down a little salt in their bedrooms to let the spirits know, if you mean this child no good, you are not welcome here. However, let me just say, rest assured that these things are normal because spirits are always going to try to communicate and contact you. Now, let's speak about lucid dreams. One of the key features of a dream is that we're not actually aware that we're dreaming during them sometimes. A very spiritual person who's tapped in is aware that he or she is dreaming. And this is when, in my classes or during my time of teaching people about their dreams, is to always stay in control. Before you go to bed, it should always be in pleasantries, not having an argument beforehand. If someone makes you uncomfortable, stay away for that person from the night because your sleep is supposed to be your rest, and it's a place where many of us connect to spirit, where we gather information from the spirit realm and bring it to the physical realm as well. So, sleep is very important. You understand what I'm saying? So, lucid dreaming, some people may not be aware, but then there's others, and especially when I teach a class, I teach people how to be themselves in their dreams, to know that you are in the dream state so that you can take total control over that dream and you don't wake up from nightmares and you don't wake up from terrors, that you can control the situation within that dream state, right? But with lucid dreams, it's only when we waken that we become um cognizant that we've moved through a whole world of visions and experiences. So, not so with lucid dreams. And these, while you are dreaming, you are conscious that you are actually dreaming. For some, a lucid dream experience involves being aware that you are in a dream as I teach. So, while for others, they may also find themselves with the ability to control the factors, the outcome of the dreams. Lucid dreams are my best friend, let me tell you, because I teach people how to connect to this and to have whatever it is that you desire through that dream space. But the only way to get to that dream space of lucid dreaming is everything around you has to be in order. Everything has to be in order. You can get into petty squabbles. You can speak to people that make you uncomfortable. You have to isolate yourself from anything or anyone that disturbs you, your mental, your physical, or your spiritual. You know, let me tell you, I'm in a whole new place and I'm still trying to dig my feet into the dirt to get myself planted. But I'm in a whole new way of the way people do things around me, which is not my way, and my ways are probably not their ways. So, we're still in the process of trying to figure these things out. However, when it comes to the lucid dreams, these are the ability that you have to control the factors, including the environment within that dreams, the characteristics, the actions, and more. So while this may seem like something straight out of a modern day sci fi movie, lucid dreaming has quite ancient roots. Let me tell you this, ancestral roots. Let me tell you. So, when one is asleep, there is something in the consciousness which tells us that what presents itself is but a dream. It is but a dream. So understand that lucid dreaming isn't as uncommon as some may think. In fact, it happens more often than not. It happens more often than not. And I'm actually putting together a class as a whole for people to be able to tap into who they are. A lot of people, you pay people like me to connect with someone who's crossed over, or you may pay me for a psychic reading, right? Concerning a job, a love situation, right? Or somebody hurting or harming you. Or you may come simply to see what the cards have in store for you. However, all these things are inside of many of us. Many of us come from solid roots of root workers, of healers, right? And that means that it's already inside your DNA. You know, oh, I had a reading for this particular woman. And then that day, being that she lived in the same state that I did, I met with her daughter that day so that I can give her daughter some things to bring to the mom. Maybe a few weeks later, the mother said, "Hey, can you read for my son?" And I said, "I need his permission." Right? And she said, "You have it." No, I said, "No, I need his permission." And I said, "You want it today?" She said, "I do." I said, "Give me about an hour and a half to 2 hours." I was actually out grabbing some garden supplies. And then my daughter and I, while we were out grabbing the garden supplies, I'm looking at the flowers. I'm looking at the vegetables that they already had that were rooted and in plant form. And then I'm looking at seeds and I'm like, oh, wow, I wish I could buy all of this stuff, right? And so then now we're leaving. And I said, oh my goodness, my reading is in 15 minutes. And she was like, I told you, let's leave the store. And then as we're driving home, I send the mom a text and I said, tell him to actually give me 30 minutes because I needed to get home, wash my face, my hands, always be clean when you read, right? And to clear my energies. And then after I connected with this young man, he's like, I've never had anything like this in my life. And I said, we're here, right? And so there were some things that I needed to do for him, but I needed to see him in the physical. And, he and I met, but he brought another sister along with him. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this sister. She never got out the car. And I said, can you ask your sister to get out of the car? And she did. And she stood right in front of me. And I'm like, ooh, I'm analyzing this girl and I'm feeling such a energy from her. And I'm like, ooh, she has gifts, very important gifts. So I said a few things to her and we laughed and things like that. But I got on the phone and I called her mother. I said, listen, your daughter is similar to me. And she said, what? I said, listen, you have this in your family, what I do. She said, I'm from the islands. And she said, you are one of the strongest people I've ever spoken to. Because when you said you was going to do a work for me, it happened the same day. I said, we can't go there. I said, I need to talk about your daughter. And she goes, which one? I said, it's actually both of them, but I'm focused on the one that I met today, not the one that I met 2 weeks ago. This one. She had very spiritual gifts. And the young lady said, I said, did anybody ever tell you that you were special in a spiritual way? She said, yes. And her mom said, I never knew that. I said, you never know where your kids be going, right? When they're young adults, right? When you see a house on the side of the road and it may be a healer, a root worker, or a palm reader, right? And you want to pull over you and your friends for a little fun. But be careful with doing that, right? Be very careful with doing that because some of those people are actually called soul snatchers. True story. They are called soul snatchers. So if you are a weak minded or weak energy type of person, you walk in and they take parts of you. You walk out, you feel depleted, and nothing is ever the same. So be careful when you see that little old house, you know, that tells you to come on in for a palm reading. $10 on the sign. When you walk inside, it's 25. And then they tell you you need something else, then it's 50. By the time you walked out, it's about 100, you know? But be careful with that. However, the lady said to me, the mom, she said, it's funny that you've mentioned this. She said, because my grandfather, he's crossed over, was a healer. And no one in our family knew who the gifts were going to be passed down to, if anybody at all. I said, well, I stood in front of her and your other daughter, both of them. But this daughter that I met today, if she doesn't accept her gift, your youngest daughter will not get hers. And she was like, my goodness. And I said, the youngest daughter, if she finds that she has gifts, she's going to pressure this one to come into fruition. And she said, you're absolutely correct. That's what she would do. And I said, but this one needs to connect with your family from the islands because the work that I do is not going to be the same work that your grandfather did. So we always need to protect our ancestral lines. So let's speak about big dreams before I dive into souls. But big dreams sometimes are dreams that feel so mundane, whereas other times they feel quite interesting and fascinating. And sometimes they exceed even that. They are highly memorable, often experienced as if they contain some very significant information or a very powerful lesson, or perhaps others need to heal. So big dreams are the ones that also stick with us and we just can't shake. Big dreams sometimes make you feel so good and you don't want to talk to anybody about it. You're just like, oh, I'm waiting for this to manifest itself. So they are the ones that feature heightened visual imagery that becomes etched into our memories. They are the ones that many people immediately come to mind when someone asks you about an important dream and you're looking about at the one that made you just feel so good from the inside out, right? They are the ones that may be remembered as being filled with powerful archetypes or experiences as if they really are tapping into your soul, that collective unconsciousness. So big dreams may sometimes be upsetting ones as well, experienced as these nightmares that we spoke about, or they may be joyous, right? And that very revolutionary, right? Especially in these times that we're going through, especially my people, right? Trying to hold it all together, right? Saying, we're not going back. We're not going back. You want to separate? We've already been separated. You have already separated. us. There has never been anything that was equal between us. We have already been separated. You've stolen from us from the left to the right. You even tried to take our identities, even tried to tan yourself to look like us. That's why they're covering the sun, because that's where our power comes from. And they learned that. And the sun doesn't work for them. I'm a root worker. And when people see the word root worker, or they hear the word root worker, they think it's demonic. They think it's damning, right? But I am a woman, as my ancestors. We work the root. Let's just speak about chamomile. Many of you drink chamomile tea. Many of you may grow chamomile, but chamomile is for prosperity. Chamomile is for abundance, and it's to relieve stress. That's why you drink it, to help you to wind down, to calm down, to put you in that feeling of going to sleep peacefully, right? Is to help to alleviate anxieties, to banish the nightmares that we just discussed. And for some of you, is to ease insomnia. So we use herbs, right, for healing things. Who would have known about these herbs if it wasn't for my people? My people. Because my people, we didn't have medicines. We worked the root, right? Let's speak about cinnamon. Cinnamon sticks. We know that they don't come here from the USA, but cinnamon sticks, they increase, for some people, passion, to promote, once again, prosperity, that abundance, and they aid in exorcism. So if somebody possess demonic energies and you need to dispel it, cinnamon can be used for that, dispelling negativity. So this is how we work the root. So a lot of people, anytime that I do readings up here, I have a lot of people that like to watch my readings and to come back to tell you something differently. But always remember, the people that come back to tell you something differently are the people who have stolen my culture, my tried to steal my heritage. Uh-huh. Because we are the Jews. We are the Black Jews, right? We've never stolen anyone's identity, but we create identity because we are the identity of this earth and beyond, right? So, souls, it's very important to understand souls, especially if it's someone who's crossed over in your family, a friend, someone that you may have had as an enemy, a soul, an unsettled spirit that you may need to fix things with or not. A lot of souls appear in our lives. For instance, the best example, my father has crossed over, right, many years ago. And with my father crossing over, our last moments before he crossed over, I whispered in his ear and I told him a secret. And after I told him that secret, he honestly passed away. I knew that his spirit was going to be in an unrest. That's why I said what I said to him, for him to come straight back so we can finish the conversation. And we did. We did. Not that week that he died, but the following week, he said, "What did you say to me?" I said, "I said exactly what I said." And he said, "I'm sorry." I said, I don't need you to be. I don't need you to be. And that was that. That was that conversation. Hmm. So, my dad is always here as a protector. My dad is a quiet guy, always watching. But with my children, my grandson, he's always making his rounds. And then I may have one daughter be like, hey, I felt this today, or this happened, and it was grandpa. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he's even been in contact with my husband. Those are easy spirits, right? Mm-hmm. But my dad is also the type of spirit, if you do something to me, you ever heard the term? If you run from a spirit, they'll make you hurt yourself. But my dad is also the spirit that'll make you hurt yourself. But he is at rest. He's what we call in between worlds. In between worlds, meaning that's where he wants to be. He can be here with his mother, father, with his grandma, his grandpa, or he can be here with his child, his other children, and his grandchildren. So he's what we call in between worlds, right? Not settled, not settled. Then we have spirits who are actually not settled at all. They have crossed over unexpectedly, suddenly, and you have some people that cross over like that, they accept where they are. Then you have some that don't accept passing away. So then it's a tug of war trying to stay in this realm, going back to that realm. But then there's this thing that all spirits have to encounter, and it's called reflection. They all have to go through reflection before they enter the womb that they chose, and then they have to go through the life that they live. They have to live every piece, nothing can be missed, so that they can understand the way life transformed for them the way that it did. And then there's this cycle that's called repeat. Some people will come back again, and some people will not. They will choose not to come back to this realm. And we call that reincarnation. Some people will come back as themselves, others will come back in another form of someone else or something else. You said agreed. Yes, that is the truth. However, the spirits that are unsettling, they will try to antagonize you through nightmares, as I explained what a nightmare is. They will try to antagonize you to make you feel uncomfortable because they are not settled, or they may have some unfinished business with a particular person. But then there's also ways of banishing those spirits, praying to a certain deity that controls the spirit world to make them stay where they belong, especially when they're in this realm causing chaos. You can lock a spirit in if a spirit is being mischievous. Then there are other spirits that are happy where they are, because these are the ones who are comfortable with seeing their crossed over relatives, and everybody is not going to see their crossed over relatives. Do you know in the Bible, many of you that believe in the Bible says, in my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it wasn't so, I would not have said it, right? That's what the Bible says. However, in the spiritual world, we as a people, we understand those mansions to be realms. So in our world, there are many realms, equal to what they said in the Bible, there are many mansions. When you hear that word, you hear, oh my goodness, when I cross over, I'm going to have a mansion. I get to go and live in a mansion. But in my world, in the spiritual world, we understand that as realms. Like right now, Earth is one realm. Then you step out and there's another, and you keep moving around. They live life as we live here. Now, ask me, how do I know? I've crossed over 3 times in my life. I have crossed over 3 times in my life, and there's someone who has favor, right? There's someone who authentically loves me and says, it's not your time. You are not leaving this world. It is not your time. You have a job to do. You are not leaving. The first, and I can remember like it was no tomorrow. I was a newborn, and I can remembering looking at my cousin's husband, and I was smiling at him, and then I stopped breathing, and I can feel me not being able to breathe. He picks me up, hands me to my dad, and they rush me to the emergency room. In the car. And then here she comes again. She's back. I stayed in the hospital for quite some time, diagnosed with nothing. They didn't understand why I stopped breathing, but they kept me in the hospital to observe. My grandfather said, she's special. This girl could see. That's what he said. Here's another time. We'll leave that time alone. And then my last time, every step, when I left out of my body, I saw myself leaving out of my body. I saw the people around me in the emergency room. I saw the people around me in the operating room, and I can hear the doctor saying, she's so young. Come on, let's get her back. I can see them shocking me and my body jumping, but as that's happening, I'm still rising. And as I'm rising, I'm like, what the fuck? I thought I was going to hit the ceiling. Like, what's going to happen when I reach the ceiling in this emergency room? And I go through it. The next thing you know, I'm with my sister. I'm with my sister, and she's like, you're not supposed to be here. And I'm thinking she's going to give me a hug or something. And I'm like, so excited to see her. And she was perturbed, annoyed. Go back. And I'm like, wait, give me a hug. You're not happy to see me? She was like, you're not supposed to be here. Go back now. I'm like, I don't want to go. And I'm looking around me, and everything was peaceful. It was a feeling that I had never felt in my life, even as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, as a granddaughter, as an aunt, as a niece. I've never experienced this feeling. And I'm looking at my sister, excited because she had crossed over years before this. So I'm just happy to have my big sister back. And she's like, go back. And as I start walking down this road, she stood where she was at. And then the next thing you know, I was back in my body. And they was like, she's back. And I was so angry because I didn't want to be back in my body. I did not want to be back whatsoever. And I was angry. And then the next thing you know, I was in a coma. I was in a coma. With me being in a coma, I can still hear everything around me. I can hear everybody talking. And I'm saying, I'm here. And they're making decisions for me as if I wasn't there. And I can scream and I can hear myself saying, I'm here. You're not doing that. I don't want that. And no one can hear me. So imagine being trapped inside your own body. One of the worst feelings ever. You know, one of the worst feelings ever. So, spirits, you have beautiful spirits, spirits that live you, they are alive, spirits that are alive. We have spirits that come back in the physical form, whether it be in a new body or in a body of their own. Have you ever seen people and you be like, oh my God, that person has a twin and she looks just like so and so and so? Or you meet a person and you're like, oh my God, they feel like my dad. Oh, he acts like my dad. He mimics my dad. It's that familiar spirit, but then you know that they're a stranger because this could not possibly be your dad if he's crossed over. So spirits contact you, connect with you in different ways. Then we have spirits that cause those nightmares, those unsettling spirits. We have those spirits that mean you no good, or you have spirits that are angry, that is them that crossed over and not you. Imagine being in a car with someone, having an accident. Everyone survives, but this spirit. This spirit is like, why me? I'm the one that had on my seatbelt and they didn't. So sometimes we have unsettling spirits. And there are ways that you can keep those spirits at bay. There are ways to invite them in, to connect with them, to comfort. Then there are ways to send them to where they belong because sometimes they feel like I didn't finish something that I was supposed to finish, that I was meant to finish. Sometimes we have spirits that are attached to things, whether it be a home, whether it be a vehicle, whether it be their child or a grandchild, or whatever the case may be. And so they linger around for the people that they feel like they can't let go of. So I've seen platforms where they tell you that there's no such things as spirits that are not at rest, right? That are demonic. And that's not so. If it was true that there was no such thing as a bad spirit, how do people's bodies become possessed? In the Bible, there was possession of a person whose spirit that they cast out into a pig, right? Those of you who read the Bible. I'm not a Bible thumper, although I do know the Bible. You know, I come from a family that are religious people, right? So I know the Bible like I know how to get dressed in the morning. And then I have a family that are very spiritual people, but we don't knock each other for what we believe in. We don't disrespect a person for what they believe in because we all have to have faith in something. But you said, are you? Am I what? Eliza, am I what? Oh, you said, how are you? I didn't see the how, right? Listen, I got my husband's glasses on today. I didn't see the how. I'm very well. Thank you so much. I'm very well. But spirits, Know them. Ask them, what are you doing here? What do you desire? How can I help you? And if it's a spirit that you will know. A smell, a certain touch, a whisper in the ear. You will know them because a spirit that's not here to harm, you're always going to feel comfort. And even those spirits, you can call out to them and they will let you know who it is if you actually don't know. Show me a sign, right? Everyone says, show me a sign, and they will show you a sign. That is me, you know? They will show you a sign that is me. You at work and listening to me, I need your job. I need your job, that I can sit there and listen and no one says anything. I need your job. Call me. But true is so true. But a spirit will always let you know. You know, the day my mom passed away, a lot happened in that evening because she passed away in the evening. And it, the craziest day of my life, right? As you can imagine. But when I went to her home, the refrigerator went out. Like it just, it broke. It was done. So I'm like, grandma's here. And she had told me, she was like, I want a new refrigerator. I'm like, Mom, you don't need a new refrigerator. And then I guess she said, okay. That day, the refrigerator went out. And I'm like, I'm not touching this refrigerator. Everything she had in there, I was going to leave it. And before she had gone to the hospital, she was drinking a cup of tea. And her tea was on her nightstand. And the way she got off her bed with her house shoes, I told my kids, do not kick those house shoes, do not bump into them, leave them right there. And they're like, Ma, we have to walk around the shoes. I'm like, so what? Then get out of her room, right? Get out of her room. And that night, when my mother passed in the hospital, I did not let her go to the morgue. I called the funeral home because I had told them to be on standby that week. And these were family friends that owned the funeral home. And I said, be on standby. It's going to be this week. And they said, okay, we will. So as soon as you know, they counted her down with her last breath, I called them. I said, come and get her now. And when I got her to the funeral home and, brought her inside and everything, I sat in my car in front of the funeral home. And she came and she said, leave, leave. And I didn't. I spent the night in front of the funeral home that night. And the next morning, the owner knocked on my car window and they was like, did you stay here all night? And I was like, yes, I couldn't leave. And they was like, go home, take a shower, get dressed. We got her. I said, no, I want to come back and see her today. And then I went to my mom's house, took a shower, got dressed, and things just started falling. And I'm walking around and I'm picking things up that should not have fell. So that already was the start of my morning, like keeping me busy not to go back to the funeral home. And so I go and get my daughter and my grandson, and I'm like, you want to go see grandma? And she's like, "Mom, we just brought her here last night." I'm like, "Forget that." I'm like, "Forget that. Let's go see her." And I go to the funeral home, and they was like, "We have her right here. We did what you said. We didn't bring her downstairs yet. We knew you were coming back." And they allowed me to sit with her. And, when I was going over how I wanted her hair and not to touch her eyebrows because she never got her eyebrows done. She was like, "I'm natural," you know? So my mom didn't go and get her eyebrows plucked, arched, or anything. And they was like, "You don't want us to touch her eyebrows?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not. Do not touch her eyebrows." And I'm like, "Forget that. I don't even want y'all to touch her. Can I wash her up?" True story. And my mother had pool, so they were doing everything I said. And we go back to the house again, and the TV comes on. And I'm like, Mom. And it was food on the television, but it was something she ate. And my daughter and I had not eating, but I had my grandson, so I had to go get something to eat because I'm like the baby, the grandbaby. And I still didn't eat, but I took them to get food. But they will always show you signs. And then when we went back to our home, and my daughter's like, "Ma, you need some rest. You've been on 10." And we're sitting on the couch in the dark, television on. Then all of a sudden, the kitchen lights up. And with the kitchen lighting up, it was as if somebody opened the refrigerator. So I'm like, "I'm not going in there." And my daughter is sitting there like, "Mom, it's grandma." I'm like, "I know." Then a can that was on the counter, bloop, fell on the floor. And I'm like, "Mom, stop it." And she was saying, "Get some rest." So I went upstairs and I just took a bath and I just sat in that tub. And I said to my daughter, "As soon as we get out this tub, we're going back to grandma's house." And as soon as I got out the tub, I fell asleep, getting the rest that she said that I needed. And when I woke up, it was the middle of the night, and I'm like, "Let's go." We're not supposed to be here. We're supposed to be at her house. And my daughter's like, "Ma, it's the middle of the night." And I'm like, "Forget that. Let's go." And we had gone. We gone. And yeah, but spirits, they visit you and they'll show you I'm here. My mom shows me every day that she's here. I connect with her every day. And I never have a day or allow a day to go by without me saying, "Hey, Mom, how you doing?" And she responds. I don't have a day without saying to my sister, "Hey, how you doing, sis?" And she not respond. Allow me to be outside and I'm speaking to my mom, my sister, and my dad. Ooh wee, the trees speak to me. And I'm like, "Dad, that's you. Move the tree from the right to the left. Mom, that's you. Move the tree from the left to the right." And if it's my sister, let the branches just shake like crazy. And they do. And you'll always have a sign from them. True story. I was with my stepdaughter, and when I was with her picking out a place in Texas, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, her mom is here," because her mom had crossed over. So as we get out of the car, right? and we're looking at this apartment slash townhouse complex, I kept hearing this one, right? So I'm like, she has to look for herself. I'm not going to say anything. So my husband looks at me and he's like, "You're getting something, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes." And I was like, don't say anything, because his daughter had to look for herself. So I said to my husband, "We're going to find a feather. It's going to be a feather to solidify this." So we're inside going to the units that were available. The lady is taking us on a tour. She's showing us the gym that's inside the building. And I see the feather on the floor. And I said to his daughter, "This is for you." She said, "You saw it." I said, "This is not for me. Put it in your wallet." And she picked it up and she put it in her wallet. And now everybody is looking at me like, "What the heck? How did this feather appear?" But spirits can do so many things that we couldn't touch the surface of doing. We couldn't ever. We couldn't ever. And she actually ended up picking that facility. She had to make her own choice. And then when she picked the facility, I'm like, "This is the one your mom chose." And we were at a Walmart in Texas. She needed some supplies, just little odds and ends for her space. And as we were inside of the Walmart, we were separate. I was over here. I was amazed of how large the food was in Texas, no lie. When they say everything is bigger in Texas, they mean it. I'm looking at pickles, right? It was like a jar this big, and I wanted to take that jar home. But we were flying home and I couldn't take that jar. I wanted to leave my clothes for that jar of pickles. Let me tell you, when I tell you steak, their steak was like so thick. This is at their grocery store at Walmart, the food section. And I'm like, ours don't look like this. Like ours couldn't touch the surface. So then I'm hearing, "Get to my daughter." And I'm like, obeyed immediately. And I see my husband, he's at the other end of the meats. And she just took me straight to her. And it was two young girls speaking to her. And the mom's like, "Church." So I'm staring at them and I'm saying to her, "They talking about church?" And she's like, "Yeah, they invited me to a church." I was like, "These are traffickers. These are traffickers." As young as these girls were, they were traffickers. The next day, when we went to the apartment complex, I'm speaking to the apartment manager and I'm telling her what happened at Walmart. She goes, I didn't even tell her part about the church, her mom, anything. I'm just speaking about traffickers in general. She was like, "Yeah, and what they do here is that they'll tell you to come to this church, invite you to a church, and when you get there, it's an abandoned building, and you pull in and you never leave out." And she said, "It'd be young girls and stuff, they do that." She says they've caught in a few of them. And it was the same scenario, what she was saying to us that happened to us in Walmart. So, spirit, they will come to warn and they will get your attention. They may not speak to you in a whole sentence like I'm speaking to you now. It may be a word, it may be a feeling that you can connect with, you know? It could be a feeling that you can connect with. However, My husband, he didn't want her to stay in Texas. So I'm like, don't worry, she won't be here long. She's going somewhere else. And next thing you know, she came back home and then she ended up in another spot, with her IT job. You know what I mean? But let me just tell you, connect to source. Don't let anyone try to tell you that spirituality is wrong, because spirituality is actually freedom. It's freedom of the mind. I know that many of you hear this term that we're caught in the matrix. What that simply means is that you are being controlled, that your thoughts are not actually yours. You're doing things in a way that a person may want you to do them. Like you said, you're at work listening, right? And so, in a setting, you can't tell the people what to do. There's always going to be someone over the next person, and they may have told you to do something that you may not agree with, but you have to do it because you're at work. So, spirituality is freedom, freedom for you to connect to the world around you. When I was young, listen, I'm about to be 53, right? I'm about to be 53 and I got this wig on, but y'all know you saw me go bald online, right? I need another haircut, right? I had the dreads, I had to get rid of them. A few of them came out from the scalp, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my hair better come back, but it's coming back. But I'm just going to keep it low until it grows out evenly, right? However, when you connect to the world around you, you're free. You're not caught up in any matrix at all. When I was young, I used to live in the North, and my grandparents were from the South, North Carolina. And I had an aunt, she's crossed over now, and she was a root worker in this country ass town, right, in North Carolina. And my mom would send me there for the summers, and I disliked it with a passion. When I tell you she was farmer in the Dale, she had the largest farm, right, for a black woman, a single black woman, because her husband had passed away. So she had this huge farm, right? She had horses, she had cows, she had chickens and turkey and sheep, right? She had goats, you name it, she had it. Damn it, she even had an albino alligator, right? But that thing came on its own, right? It's not something she purchased. It was it was something else, right? It was mystical, but it was genuine. It was authentic. But it would come to the property and never touch any of her livestock. True story. And it would show up every now and then. And her sister lived behind her, my Aunt Lee, right? And she would take me to the woods and I would have to learn all the herbs. Now I'm young and my cousins are down there playing with no shoes on. They just running through the dirt. And I'm from the north, so we got sidewalks and stuff. And they out there in the country. I'm like, ew, they getting dirty, right? I'm like, we don't do that. And my mother would send me there every summer. And I hated it with a passion. However, every time that my Aunt Lee, she wasn't the root worker, she was the herbalist. Every time we would go into the woods, she would make me come. And I'm like, why they don't gotta come? Like my other cousins, I'm the snitch. Like, why they don't gotta come? She's like, this for you. And I had to learn all the herbs. And I didn't know why I would ever need to know this. Like where I was from, we didn't have all these things. The shit y'all got in the woods down here, we didn't have them up there. And I'm like, I'm never going to use this. And I'm sneaking and I'm calling my grandfather. I'm like, they being mean to me. He like, what they got you doing? I'm like, they got me in the woods with the bugs. The snakes. He hung up, right? Like, I don't want to hear that. And then my aunt, she unplugged the phone. You remember back there? She just unplugged the phone, like, don't touch my phone without my permission. And she was the root worker. So all the things that we would gather out in the woods, bring them in the house. And she had, when I tell you, she had customers out the door because they did come to her house. And every little thing was for something. Every plant was for a certain ailment that was needed. Everything was for something. And I watched her heal. Shit, I was scared of her for a moment because the things that I saw, it wasn't natural. Then, when I got older, I was a teenager. I got my driver's license and I bought my car. When I bought my car, guess what I wanted to do? I wanted to drive to North Carolina to show my grandfather my car that I purchased. I wanted to show my cousins, right? That was down there on them tractors and stuff, my car, because I had a system too. And I wanted to show my car off, right? I couldn't show it off to the people where I was from because they had better cars. But I knew I could take that car down south and show it off, and I knew I would be the shit, right? So I took the car, and this girl, her name was Linnell, and I'm not going to say her last name. She and I had gone to high school together. She was like, T, what you doing? I said, I'm about to drive to North Carolina. She was like, by yourself? I'm like, yeah. She was like, I've never left the state. I'm like, what? I was like, you want to ride? She was like, yeah. So I'm not telling her anything about my family. We just taking our ride, got my system, we chilling, we driving. And now, you know, we coming through Virginia. We get into North Carolina. And she was like, the smell is different. I was like, what it smell like? And she was like, it smells fresh. And I'm like, okay. So now we getting close to my aunt house. I'm like, listen, I need to tell you something. She was like, what's up? I was like, where we're going, we're spending the night. I said, but you can't go back home and tell anybody what you see here. She was like, girl, what you talking about? I was like, my aunt is a root worker. She like, what's that? I was like, she's a healer. We do voodoo. And she was like, what? She was like, girl, I don't want to go there. I was like, we going. I said, my aunt will let me know if you good or not. So we get there. She was like, yo, why are these cars here? I said, all these people waiting to see my aunt. But we won't go through that door. We go through the front door. So when we go through the front door, my aunt came out her office, gave me a hug. And she looked at my friend. I was like, she gonna spend the night with me. She gonna be here. So my aunt gave her a hug. And while my aunt is hugging her, she's reading her. And she was like, you gonna wanna see me. And my friend Linnell was like, I don't know about all that. So she was like, T, this where you be? I said, yeah, this where I be. She was like, this shit dope. She was like, it's animals here. So she had never saw a farm animal. So I'm walking her around the farm. And she's like, who them people across the road? I said, that's my Aunt Lynn. She got a tobacco field. She got a corn field. She got a collar field. She was like, yo, what the hell is going on? She was like, those people. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, we stayed there, not just that night. We was there like 3 days. And she was like, yo, I want to see your aunt. I was like, you got to go get in line with them people. You can't come through the house and see her. You got to go around. So my aunt, she could hear. She was like, she could see me next. And I'm like, okay. I'm named after my aunt. My name is Tara, and my aunt was Sarah. And she goes in. My aunt closes the door, and Linnell comes out crying, snotting. I'm like, yo, what she said? She was like, I ain't gonna tell you. I was like, you ain't gonna tell me what my aunt said? And she was like, nah. So back then, I was doing some other things, right? And my aunt, she was like, you next. And I was like, I don't want to see you. She was like, you come in here. And she was like, what you doing? You better stop. And I said, I was like, yo. She was like, yo, she said some shit to me. I was like, bitch, you better tell me. And she would never. So we took that trip a few times. And then another girl that I had brought with us. So now it's me, Linnell, and this girl named T. I won't say her name because she's recently passed away. And so for her family that sees me up here, no disrespect. And we go to my aunt house now with this girl. And my aunt was already walking towards the front door as we're walking in. And she was like, she gotta go. I'm like, we just got here. Off the road. We done drove like 8.5, 9 hours. She was like, you gotta go get a hotel. I'm like, what? She was like, she ain't coming in my house. So the girl T, she was like, yo, what I do? I'm like, yo, my aunt don't mess with you. And Linnell was like, she ain't do that to me. I was like, I know. So now my aunt done told me something like, yo, you can't trust her. You can't mess with her. So I'm like, okay. So we go get a hotel, whatever. First time I'm going to a hotel when I got family right there. And my family was like, nah, nah. So, as you can imagine, that was my last time fucking with her the long way. Because when my aunt said it, it was real. So I didn't see Linnell for like 12, 13 years. And we had linked up. And she was like, yo, T, I've been trying to get in contact with you forever. I'm like, what? And she was like, yo, I want to go see your aunt. I was like, girl, my aunt passed away. She was like, yo, everything she said came true. She was like, you do what she do? I was like, no, fuck that. No, I don't do that. And she was like, come on, for real. I was like, no, I don't do that. She was like, you was always a little different. And I'm like what? She was like, your ass crazy as hell. She was like, just shit be happening to people. I'm like, bitch, shut up. Shut up. So that's when she explained to me now, after all of these years, everything my aunt said and everything that transpired. And I'm like, yo, why you ain't never say nothing? And she was like, yo, she the truth. She was like, but I just got this feeling you be doing the same shit. You don't be fucking with people. So I fuck with who I want to fuck with. That's what I said. I go to tell you this. If you got a feeling, if something makes you feel uncomfortable, if someone makes you feel uncomfortable, your spirit is already speaking to you, letting you know that he or she is not it. If the hairs on your arm, on your legs, if they stand up, another warning. Goosebumps. Some people get goosebumps out of being happy. Some people get goosebumps out of being sad. You have to understand and know your body because the body speaks to you. And those who pay attention to the body are those who are not trapped within the matrix. Now, many of us, we don't do things the same way. Who I pray to, you may not want to pray to. Who you pray to, I may not want to pray to. However, in every culture, we pray to different deities. However, our deities may be common more than you think. They just may have a different name. But we may work with them differently. We may give to them differently. Because anytime that you pray to a certain deity, you always have to bring an offering. It's called respect. You respect them as if whatever it is that you're going to them for, that they've already given it to you. We're not paying them, but we're bringing offerings out of respect. That's just like if you go to an elder's home in your family, you may bring something. Well, I know we do in our family. Like if I'm leaving out the state and I'm going to see a relative, I might bring a cake to their house, a case of soda, something that I know that they like. Shit, I might bring a box of chicken. I'm just saying. But it's called respect that we give to the elders. So is you bring gifts, right? But the body is so important to understand. The mind, because we create the life that we desire within the mind. It's like in kindergarten, and I've said this before, if your teacher says, hey, draw my family, draw your family. So you draw that little stick figure, right? And you put it in the little hair, and you're like, this my mom. So you drew the little picture. I wish I had a pen, right? So I could go through this with you. Okay. So we're in kindergarten. And the teacher says, well, draw your family. And you're like, okay, I'm going to draw my family, right? This my dad. All right, now I'm going to draw my mom. And then you're like, oh my goodness. So this one has to be the mom because she has curly hair. So this one has to be the dad because he has an afro. So in your mind's eye, what do you see, right? When she told you to draw your family, you draw your mom and dad, you can see your dad with the afro, so you draw your dad with an afro. Oh, mom has curly hair, so you're putting curly hair on her. So, how do you know these things? You're getting it from the mind, right? So, if you can create it, which I just did, you can visualize it. So, when you sit with your eyes closed, what do you see? Smart ass. You're going to be like, it's dark up in here, it's black. Wait a minute. You got to push that away. And whatever you desire to have, you got to bring it to the front and you got to remove all that darkness when you close your eyes. So, when you visualize me right now, I could see a whole bunch of numbers with a whole bunch of zeros on the end, right? So, nah, I don't visualize thousands. I'm seeing mills up in here. So, I'm looking at millions, right? So, I'm looking at a check with my name on it with this number attached to a whole bunch of zeros, right? That's what I see when I close my eyes. So, if I want to bring that to fruition without just looking at it within the mind's eye, I have to believe it. So now that I see that check, that's the check by itself. So that means if the check is by itself, that means it's anywhere for anyone to be able to grab. It doesn't belong to me. It has my name on it. But you know how sometimes people, right? They be stealing people identities. It's not yours until you hold it. So now when I go back and close my eyes, I see that check with my name on it. I see myself with it. because all details are important anytime that you're being creative, because you're creating within the mind. You have to see it in the mind's eye, right? For you to bring it to your reality, for you to bring it to fruition. You have to be able to see it. If you can't create it, you can't have it. But if you can create it, you can have it. And it means that it's yours, that it belongs to you. It's yours. It's as plain and simple as that. So now that you can see it and you visualized it, you have to walk around the most important thing with your head up high, knowing that it is yours. So you got to walk around like, I got this $1 million check in my purse. Mine is not just 1 million. I got a whole bunch of numbers on that account. But you have to walk around like it's yours, like it belongs to you. And if it doesn't belong to you, then you need to allow that darkness to come back in. That means nothing is for you. Because if you can't create it in the mind's eye, if you can't see it within the mind's eye, then it's not for you. Whatever you create, you can have. I have a video on how, once again, and I always got to pump this. I have a video, but it was like over a year ago, how I purchased a home with $5 in my bank account, how I got approved for a mortgage, how a family took their house off the market and trusted that I would purchase it after I went through the proper steps. But I have a whole video that's in detail. Now, that was over like 20 years ago, but it happened. But you know how it happened? I saw it. I saw it. And when I saw it, I drew it. I saw it in my mind's eye. I drew as many details as I could. Then one day I'm on the computer, and as I'm on the computer, this house pops up, and I'm like, shit, that's the house I saw in my mind's eye. I didn't even think about where the house was. Guess where the house was? It was in North Carolina, the same place that I dreaded to be as a child. I was moving to North Carolina. I was like, shoot, if that's where I'm supposed to be, then that's where I'm going. Because that's where that house was. And I purchased it. You have to create it. And it takes some people a while to be able to create, to see the picture within the mental eye. Once you are able to create, you can have whatever it is that you desire. A lot of times you need to remove distractions, whether it's a person, whether it's a place or a thing, because you have to become one with yourself to remove distractions. You can't create if you got somebody over here. Hey, where we going? What we doing? You got somebody over there tugging at you. Can you give me a ride? You got somebody over there. You want to drink tonight? You got somebody over there. You want to go out tonight? Bitch, I'm busy. You got something else to do. You got to create the life you desire in your mind's eye. You have to bring it to fruition. So, no, I can't be disturbed. And once you are able to create and not allow anyone to disturb you, because when you start to create, you're going to have people coming at you from the right to the left and from the left to the right, trying to stop you. It's called the distraction. and you have to see your way out of the distraction. I'm busy. Not right now. Nah, I don't want to go this week. I'm staying in. You know, you got to start pushing away the clutter because you may want something that somebody else doesn't. You may want that house. They may not want it. They may be comfortable with living in an apartment for the rest of their life, but you like, shit, I want my own yard. I want a townhouse. I want a house. Shit, I want a trailer. I want a yard. I want to grow some things. I want to do some things. I want my peace. I don't want to be attached by a wall. I'm just saying. So, the next step is for you to decide what you want to do. Me, my mind is always on the world around me. True story. My mind is always on the world around me. So I'm always focused on what's happening in this current climate that we're in. And I speak about in all my videos, I'm always giving a lesson of some sort to connect to you, to the core of you. We got this person that's trying to block out the sun right now. Now, who in the world will block out the sun when they don't own it? Because some people are energized from it. We don't want them to be powerful. We don't want them to get out of the matrix. If they remove the sun, all we have is the moon. The moon is good, it's very good, but we need more than that. So I'm always focused on the current climate, the AI centers that they're building, and they're putting them in poor neighborhoods, the neighborhoods that they consider poor because the ghetto might be good to us. This is some people's homes. But to put these centers, these databases where people live, is disgusting because it kills, not allegedly, for real. It brings in diseases, cancers, and then it strips you of waters. And that's going to be something else that we're going to be fighting for. You remember once upon a time, our water bill was the cheapest bill that we can have. And some people still don't even have water bills, those that have land and that have well water. But that water bill is about to be a thing of the past. It's going to be one of your highest bills because they know that it's something that's needed, is necessary. And if we can't afford it, many of us are not going to be able to have it. So if they don't want you to have it, let's block out the sun because they feel like it's too many people that are my color. They feel like we are too many. So let's start eliminating them from the food, from the AI centers. Let's strip away their waters. Let's go digital so we can keep an eye on them. Let's go digital. Let's remove the banking system. Let's go digital so they can't write bad checks to get them by so they can buy the next week of groceries. I'm just saying, you know how some people do that. Let's go digital. But we can be a part of that and stay in the matrix, or we can come up out of it and say that this may actually be a good thing for them to separate. This actually may be a good thing because it will bring our thinkers back. Our thinkers that say, okay, they destroyed Black Wall Street, and in the 80s, they dropped bombs in PA. Yes, they did. If you don't remember, they did that. in the 80s. Anywhere that we always try to build, they try to destroy. But it's going to be pretty hard for them to do it this time if we band together. And there are other people that are speaking for us because they see that we are the fighters. We have always fought. We fought for the right to be free. We fought for the right to be able to vote. We fought for the right to be able to have home ownership. We fought for the rights for us to be able to go in schools, but the schools where all cultures could go, a public school. We came too far to go back. A lot of people felt like we were free, but that was the trick of the matrix because you can walk into a store now to where your grandparents couldn't, or your great grandparents, they weren't welcome. They had to go to the back of the store or they had to get to the back of the bus. You like, we driving now. That was them, that wasn't us. Oh, they couldn't go in the store, but we can. But if you didn't know, they just passed a law that says that these stores have the right to say you can't come in. So connect to self and see the life that you desire to have for yourself. You have to create. Call out to your ancestors, call out to your angels, your archangels, call out to them and be like, we need you again. Because many of us are lost. Many of us don't know how to do this thing. When people said that, oh, marching, what they get by marching? They just march. We got to vote. We got to have a job that allowed us to have medical insurance. We got to go to school. We got to do some of the things that they got to do. And then we stop fighting because the fight has never been over. How Jorge and Bilal got this store in your neighborhood, but you can't even own one, but your family been in this neighborhood for years. How is it that people could come in from other countries and get loans without credit and they can open liquor stores, right? The corner store, the bodega. They could open up all these places, but you can't ever. Oh, we haven't been free. In the Matrix, it made you think that you were free until it's time for your brother or your cousin or your sister to go to court and they get in crazy ass time when your other counterparts they don't get the same time. Oh, on the news, it said that Chris got 4 years. Word, Chris got 4 years. That white boy must have a good lawyer. Oh, Christian over here, he got 15 years. Oh, he must have got a public defender. Even if he would have had a lawyer, he wouldn't have got the 15. He probably would have got 10. But with the public defender, naturally, you're going to get 15. But Chris got 4. So we were never equal. Stacy, oh my God, Stacy, her family says she's missing. Oh my God, did you see the news? Stacy's on the news. Stacy is missing. Oh my God, I hope they find Stacy. Oh my God. Charmaine missing? Girl, call the news. Oh damn, why they ain't not reporting Charmaine, but they reporting Stacy? You never been free. It's word of mouth. Oh, Charmaine over there from the east side, she missing? I bet. We're gonna keep our eye out. if we see it on the west side. So we start getting the community involved by word of mouth because we don't get the coverage. Stacy and Chris, they got all that love. But Christian and Charmaine, absolutely not. It has never been equal. Equal means freedom. So, those spirits that we were talking about, tap in. Be like, I'm ready to talk. Here I am. I need you. We need you. And that life that you desire, make sure you add freedom in there because it's time to remove yourself from the matrix. I am Empress Real 1584, the Good Witch, and I send to you nothing but love and light. And I'll be back later on for a tarot reading. I don't know what sign I'm doing yet. I really don't. I'm going to ask my daughter what's, never mind, I'm not going to ask her because she'll tell me her sign. I'm not going to ask her. I'll know later. I'll push it up before I do it. However, you're not a witch. You're not demonic by tapping into the source. I'm grateful that my aunt taught me the way of life. I am grateful that I am able to see, to hear, to feel, to taste. I am grateful for the gifts that were bestowed upon me. But there are so many people that do have gifts and that families don't even speak about it. You know, my religious family members, they don't want to talk about that root work over there. Although most of my customers be them Christians. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And as soon as they book an appointment, I'm sitting here, right? I'm like, yo, this person is religious. And as soon as they call me for their hour appointment time, I'm like, you know what I do, right? And they be like, yeah, girl, I need your help. And I'm like, okay, then let's get to it. So I'm asking you, let's get to it. We believe in different things, but we can all tap in. The Bible, too, for my Bible thumpers, and I say this often. In the Bible, there is a scripture that says, "What he that is in you is also in the world." And I got to say it again. So if the Bible says that God is in me, where am I? Well, bitch, I'm God body. I am the source. And if many of you knew that you were the source and you are the source, they wouldn't be trying to block out the source, and that's the sun. Them airplanes only flying by in areas where there's more of us. Did you know that Florida said, I'm suing because I don't want your planes flying over here, dumping your poisons. Florida said, I'm going to be like them other countries that want their people healthy. You're not going to be able to bring that toxic shit into our communities. It kind of makes sense why a lot of children are nonverbal, right? Toxins, them shots. Kind of makes sense why a lot of children have autism and the numbers are higher than ever before in our lifetime. How is it only one state, Florida, saying that they're suing the government to stop what's his name from flying those planes? Shouldn't every state be doing the same thing? Because I never knew when Bill Gates became God. I didn't know that Bill Gates owned the sun. Oh, but you haven't seen my shorts. When he says, it's too many people, the world is overpopulated. Let's start eliminating them. Oh, you didn't understand why? These ICE agents came and they started booting people out because as soon as you are no longer in the matrix, they don't want you banding together to fight the system together. Let's separate. Let's see if these people can do it again. When have we ever not been able to do it? Our ancestors, as many of the young folks laughed and said, all they did was sing. All they did was march. What did that do? The vibration and the tones of their vocals were powerful instruments. So that singing connected to their deities, that singing connected to the gods, their ancestors, their angels. It's vibration. Oh, they knew something that you didn't know. They were already dialed in. That marching, you know how many feet march? Those were called drums. But those drums were at the bottom of their feet. Those were drums. So they came in numbers. Vibration. Now you got so many people trying to teach you about sound, but the sound is already a part of who you are. So once you start tapping in, make that music with your mouth, like Biz Markie did. You break the matrix. They think with the erasure, removing us out of history, stripping the statues, taking us out of museums. Well, damn it. You would have to take everything away because we built this. Everything. We did it all. So shit. We need to start setting everything ablaze then. You can't erase us. Our blood is in the soil. We cannot be erased. I am Empress Real 1584. They call me the Good Witch, and I send to you nothing but love and light. I will be back at around 7 p.m. for a tarot card reading. I will be back. Thank you so much for your time.